disastrous run in the implementation of the budget, at least in the last 2 or 3 years under the Bola Tinubu administration, is being one patching up or the other. Those who are agitated about the disbursement of monies for capital projects. Today, lawmakers have called for an urgent review of the federal government's envelope budgeting system, arguing that it has failed to deliver expected results. They suggest that a shift to a performance-based budgeting model to enhance accountability and efficiency. The Senate today maintained that it would not consider the Accountant General's 2026 budget proposal until satisfactory explanations and assurances are provided regarding improved budget implementation and timely fund releases. I'm being joined on this part of the program by Senator Abubakar Yusuf, a former governorship aspirant in Taraba State, a former member of the National Assembly, a former member of the APC, NWC, and economist. He's live for us here in our studio. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us, and it's good to see you tonight.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
It's good to be with you.
Thank you so much indeed. Make sense of it for us. Why has it been difficult for the Tinubu government to be able to deal with budgeting? Budget performance has been disastrous. We are still having on the table budget of 2024. We're in 2026. We're talking about 2024 aspect of performance of 2024 budget, performance of 2025 budget. They're still considering. It's perhaps the first time in a long time since Jonathan period we've tried to balance a budget cycle, but this government seems to be struggling with it. What do you think is the problem?
Well, thank you very much. One of the basic problems of that, before you budget, you should have a plan. The envelope system we've been operating has been you budget before you plan. So that has been a major issue. If you give me an envelope, which is contrary to my plan, whether it is plus or minus, then, there's no way I'm going to implement, my plan. And therefore, it is bound to fail. Number two,
So you agree that we should jettison the envelope budgeting system?
I agree, yes. I have always said it. Even when I was in the Senate, I said we should jettison envelope system. It is not good for us. It's not going to work well for us. It has always happened that way, and we have always, could not meet 60% of our capital budget in all these years. No releases that have been able to meet.
It's 60, not working. 70. It has not really worked. So we should jettison
it.
Well, you're going to mention number two.
Okay. Well, number two, when you make a budget and you do not have a practical or adequate way of releasing money for the projects, because that the release too has been a major problem. If you make a budget and the release is very poor, there is no way the budget will be executed. And that has been either as a result of, lack of capacity, or as a result of poor attitude to work, or as a result of a lot of splurging. I spoke about splurging many times ago, and that has been one of the major issues that has been pulling the budget. Our budget ought to have been a surplus budget, but all our budgets have been deficit financing budgets. And it's because of what? Massive splurging.
Explain the splurging in what? Break it down for us.
The government is spending on money on what it does not need.
For example?
For example, equipment for running civil service. Every year you budget on computers, every year you budget on vehicles, every year you budget on that. You do not need these vehicles every year. You don't need all these computers every year. You do not need, a lot more things, every year. So it is splurging.
So cost of running government is a problem.
It's a very
big problem. We thought that this government says that it wants to cut cost of governance, but it doesn't look like it has been able to achieve it.
No, it has not, and it will not achieve it so long as it allows itself, it allows government to be buying what it does not need. Budget means buy what you need. So long as you spend money on what you do not need, there are so many, stores in ministries, in agencies that you find things that are not used. They have been bought, they have not been used. So it is, like squandering money, on things that, the government does not need. So that is what splurging is all about. buying something on what you do not need.
What has happened to Olasaye report? Because the president had mentioned it in one of his speeches addressed to the nation about his commitment to Olasaye's report, and that those who believe that a major problem of Nigeria is the civil service. You fix the civil service, you fix a huge percentage of our problem as a people. And it does look like those who say, ironically, this government says it wants to cut costs of governance, but in fact, it has even bloated the governor, the number of government more. That we have more ministers in this government than we have in past governments. So it meant that more agencies of government may be existing, and more people, more personnel, more vehicles will be bought, more equipment will be bought under this government. Isn't ironic?
Well, it's really ironical. Like I've said, running government, has been so much expensive, in this country, and for some of the reasons that I've given you. Secondly, if we talk about Steve Oronsaye reports, that the government is so expanded, that you are spending money on institutions that you do not need. Sometimes you need to reconcile. You need to reconcile the institutions and make sure that the institutions work for the purpose for which they were meant for. So, and then what you are going to do is look at the institutions that have conflicting, or similar, mandates, and then you can collapse those ones. There are so many institutions that we need them, even within the Steve Oronsaye report, and one example, I can give is fiscal responsibility, our commission. I know in the Oronsaye report, they are saying that we do not need to go ahead with the fiscal responsibility commission. And it is one commission that we need to develop, a lot of integrity, responsibility, and also, acts of running the government, both at the federal, state, and local government. Sean, we are talking about just federal government budget. We have not been talking about national budget. There's a lot of splurging in the states, a lot of splurging in the local government, and therefore, all these ones, by the time you put the national budget, you find that the subnational budget, are even higher than the budget of the federal government. So, I mean,
so we are not serious as a people.
We are not in the sense that, for instance, I've always been saying, we need to have, a cooperative and consultative federalism, so that there's a link, strong link between the federal government and the subnationals. Until we have that, we have, yes, we know that we have National Economic Council. Yes, in the National Economic Council, who dictates the National Economic Council? It is actually, the federal government that dictates it. Even though you have governors coming in, everybody, instead of buying what is needed by their own state, they look at, for instance, a state in the north, maybe look at what Lagos is doing, and they want to do what Lagos is doing with the kind of resources that they do not have. So what do? Oh, we can be able to borrow. So let us do, what other states are doing. So until we have a comprehensive, what do you call it, link between what the federal government is doing and what most states' government, most of them, they go into deficit budgeting.
If you are to advise this government, because it seems they are struggling with budget implementation and performance, what would you tell them tonight?
First of all,
because that has to be corrected.
Yes, first of all, do a lot more planning. Planning is very, very fundamental.
I thought they have had about one or two MTEF.
You see, MTEF, yes, MTEF, when you talk about MTEF, you just hear what the civil servants are trying to tell you and whether they are doing the right thing or not. That is why sometimes you do a lot more arguments, as to the price of crude oil, as the price of, interest rate, exchange rate, and what have you. So until you are able to do this, for instance, I've said here before, if you ask different institutions of government that are responsible for crude oil, each and every one will give you a different figure. So Until you have, a comprehensive way of determining this is this and exactly that is what it is, you will not be able to have things right.
So the Tinubunomics is not working.
For me, it's not working. I'm a member of APC. I will be the last person to hide the facts that, you see, within the policy framework, they are doing their best, but it is not the framework that is suitable for Nigeria at the point in time that President Asiwaju came into power. There are things that, yes, there are fallout. There was no study, there was no plan, there was not. Yes, I'm one of those who said, for me, President Asiwaju ought to have waited, not on the day he was sworn in, to say, what do you call it?
Subsidy
is gone. On what basis? Subsidy is gone. What they are saying that, subsidy is, corruption and what have you. If subsidy is corruption, find a way of protecting or covering, so sit down with your cabinet, sit down with your ministers, sit down with your advisors and say, hey.
Do you think that the economic situation of the country can cost your party the election?
It may and it may not. It may, in the sense that, a lot of ground has been covered, by not addressing the right policies to run the economy of this country. And we still have 1 year to go. And there are a lot more, if the government is serious about it, they can be able to do.
Let me quickly take you up on, you see what is happening with the NNPC and the refinery.
Yeah.
About a year ago, NNPC came after everyone who doubted the veracity of the stories on the running of the refinery, when they said, oh, the refinery has started working, oh, this and that. But it's the NNPC again that came to say, oh, there's a problem. Oh, working. Kudos to Dangote. Dangote refinery has helped us. But we know the millions of dollars that Nigeria borrowed alongside some private interests, and we are not paid the money back to fix the refinery, and we're hearing that the refinery is not working. If you were the president, what would you be doing right now?
Well, like I have said, right when I came to Senate, 10 years ago, I've always said, every year we sat down with NNPC to come out with a critical or in clear terms on how they are running NNPC. It has always been in OPEC. OPEC in the sense that, it's hidden. And up till today, I believe the same system in NNPC is what has been happening years back. Even with the change in management, with the change of this, the system is the same. Since the system is the same, what is NNPC? NNPC is a federation, entity. It is not federal government entity.
Quickly, let me get your view on the position of some American lawmakers who are proposing a law which in effect will affect Miyetti Allah, either the Aure or Miyetti Allah, the other group of the Miyetti Allah, and some politicians in northern Nigeria, and inferring on the leader of NNP, no, I'm talking about the former governor of Kano State, okay. Robbie Ukwankwan. So what do you make of that scenario playing out?
Well, about his relationship with the governor?
No, the relationship of extreme ideas and the attacks and the annihilation of other faith.
You see, personally, I think we need to sit down and understand ourselves very, very well. We are different. I give you an example, Shewon. I'm a Fulani man. I'm a Muslim. That does not make me, a supporter of genocide. In 2017, about 900 Fulanis were killed on the Mambila Plateau. And they are Muslims too. So these things are happening not because, there's one faith or there's one group of people against the other. For me, if we want to go ahead with this scenario mindset, we will not be able to do anything. What are the empirical evidences that are available to say that we are alleging this and we have sent them to court, let the court go, and why are they not taking them to court? How many people of Boko Haram, how many people of others that they say either they have arrested or they have, how many of them have they taken to court?
The law will be called the Nigeria Religious Freedom and Accountability Act 2026 to the U.S. Congress.
Yes.
And if that bill is passed, it will compel the United States Department of State and Treasury to impose visa bans and asset freezes on Kwankwanso alongside such as the Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association MACBAN and the Miyetti Allah Kauta Haure for their alleged roles in the systemic persecution of Christians.
Well, like I said personally, what is the evidence? If you make a law on the basis of what they said about Iraq and what they said about Libya, and then there are things that they need to study to understand. What is Miyetti Allah all about? What is MACBAN all about? MACBAN, what they are saying that Miyetti Allah, cattle breeders Association of Nigeria. That is what.
Would you honestly say that there is a freedom of religious operation of Christians in northern Nigeria?
I think there is.
You are from Taraba State.
I'm from Taraba State.
There is a reasonable number of population of Christians in Taraba State, which is totally a different departure, total departure, I would say, in that part of the country, Benue, Taraba, some part of Kwara, some part of Kogi State, Plateau State, but you cannot compare to call northwestern state of Nigeria, where there are Americans are now taking information to the extent that there are some annihilation and of Christians or other faith. Are you saying there is no element of truth in all of it?
What information? Who are those giving them the information? What kind of intelligence?
They say it's a systemic persecution.
What systemic persecution? Which system is persecuting who?
So you don't agree with the stance of American lawmakers?
I'm not saying that people are not killed. I'm not saying people are not dying. All what I'm saying is that they need to understand the nature and the system of faith operation in this country. I came from Mambila Plateau, and we are safe and quiet. We live very, very well with Christians. We have no problem with this thing attacking that or that. So for America to make this kind of law, they need to study, they need to understand, they need to come and say very clearly.
We're totally out of time, but I'll allow you 20 seconds. The position of the senators on the amendment of the Electoral Act in relation to the e-transmission. What's your own view? Just in 20 seconds.
My own view that the Senate has not done well at all. That proviso is saying that we go back to 2022. If Mr. President, actually wants to do electric transmission, real time. What is real time? Instantaneous or what? Today, in so many parts of this country, you transact, financial transactions, and it's real time. So what are we talking about? For me, what the Senate did, they are taking us back to 2022.
All right. Senator Abubakar Yusuf, a former governorship aspirant from Taraba State, a former member of the National Assembly, and former member of the NWC of the APC, and an economist also. Thanks so much indeed for your time tonight.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.